I'm recording this video with permission from Scholastic. Welcome back, everyone. Today we're going to be reading chapter 26 and 27 of the Tale of Despereaux. If you forgot, or it's been a little while since last time, remember we were introduced to a new character, which I was calling Despereaux Ch, but the more I researched this, the more I looked it up. I'm pretty sure it's Despereaux because S-O-W. In the book it says it refers to her being named after like a pig, and the word S-O-W, sow, is also in reference to a pig, so I'm pretty sure I was just pronouncing it wrong, so I'm going to be saying Despereaux today. So if it's a little different, that's how it is. She also kind of just goes by Meg in some of these chapters, but we learn Meg is our new character. And remember, they describe her as having those ears that kind of just look like cauliflower on the side of her ears, or on the side of her head, and she can't understand. Like, she doesn't end up being able to hear anything, and because of her uncle, the guy who basically is in charge of her, kind of like her owner, because remember her dad sold her to this guy, and so he shouts at her and kind of gives her these talking to, and all of those shouting impacted her hearing. And so it's this really sad story, or sad introduction about Despereaux and how she wasn't valued very much by her family. But and the ending sentence makes me think that something is going to turn around, and so I do want you to make a prediction. The ending sentence of chapter 25 says, "But then, as you know, what Despereaux wanted had never been much of a concern to anyone." And so I think personally that sentence, the author is describing all these horrible circumstances that are happening to Meg, and then at the very end she leaves off with that, saying she doesn't want to be in this cycle of no one listening to her and being mistreated. But then again, no one really cared what Despereaux wanted, and so maybe Meg's gonna kind of use her flying under the radar to do something in the story. I'm not quite sure, so we're gonna hang on and read chapter 26 and 27 today. This first chapter is called Royalty. When Meg turned 7 years old, there was no cake, no celebration, no singing, no present, no acknowledgement of her birthday at all, other than Meg saying, "Uncle, I am 7 years old today." And Uncle saying in return, "Did I ask you how old you were today? Get out of my face before I give you a good clout to the ear." A few hours after receiving her birthday clout to the ear, Meg was out in the field with Uncle's sheep when she saw something glittering and glowing on the horizon. She thought for a moment that it was the sun, but she turned and saw that the sun was in the west, where it should be, sinking to join the earth. This thing that shone so brightly was something else. Meg stood in the field and shaded her eyes with her left hand and watched the brilliant light draw closer and closer and closer until it revealed itself to be King Philip and his queen Rosemary and their daughter, the young Princess P. The royal family was surrounded by knights in shining armor and horses in shining armor, and atop each member of the royal family's head there was a golden crown, and they were all, the king and the queen and the princess, dressed in robes decorated with jewels and sequins that glittered and glowed and captured the light of the setting sun and reflected it back. "Gore," breathed Meg. The Princess P was riding on a white horse that picked up its legs very high and then set them down very daintily. The P saw Meg standing and staring, and she raised her hand to her. "Hello," the princess called out merrily. "Hello," and she waved her hand again. Meg did not wave back. Instead, she stood and watched. So there's Meg standing in the field looking at the royal family coming by. Meg did not wave back. Instead, she stood and watched, open-mouthed, as the perfect, beautiful family passed her by. "Papa," called the princess to the king, "what's wrong with the girl? She will not wave to me." "Never mind," said the king. "It is of no consequence, my dear." "But I am a princess, and I wave to her. She should wave back." Meg, for her part, continued to stare. Looking at the royal family had awakened some deep and slumbering need in her. It was as if a small candle had been lit in her interior, sparked to life by the brilliance of the king and the queen and the princess. And for the first time in her life, reader, Meg hoped. And hope is like love, a ridiculous, wonderful, powerful thing. Meg tried to name this strange emotion. She put a hand up to touch one of her aching ears, and she realized that this feeling she was experiencing, the hope blooming inside of her, felt exactly the opposite of a good clout. She smiled and took her hand away from her ear. She waved to the princess. "Today is my birthday," Meg called out. But the king and the queen and the princess were now too far away to hear her. Today, shouted Meg, I am 7 years old. And that's the end of that chapter. So I want to make sure we have time for this short chapter 27, and so I'm not going to elaborate too much, but I do want to raise our attention to see that I don't know what your prediction was about Megarisau, but if you predicted that she would maybe break out of her shell a little bit, or there would be some kind of change, like she wouldn't just be in these horrible circumstances forever, I think that ending part where she gains some confidence and realizes that she can hope for a better life, that might be a good indicator that something's going to turn around. So let's stick around for chapter 27, which is called A Wish. That night, in the small dark hut that she shared with Uncle and the sheep, Meg tried to speak of what she had seen. Uncle, she said, I saw some human stars today.
How's that?
I saw them glittering and glowing, and there was a little princess wearing her own crown and riding on her little white, tippy-toed horse.
What are you talking about? Said Uncle.
I saw a king and a queen and an itty-bitty princess, shouted Meg.
So? Shouted Uncle back.
I would like, said Meg shyly. I wish to be one of them, princesses.
Ha, laughed Uncle. Ha, an ugly, dumb thing like you. You ain't even worth the enormous lot I paid for you. Don't I wish every night that I had back that good hen and that red tablecloth in place of you?
He did not wait for Meg to guess the answer to this question.
I do, he said. I wish it every night. The tablecloth was the color of blood. The hen could lay eggs like nobody's business.
I want to be a princess, said Meg. I want to wear a crown.
A crown? Uncle laughed. She wants to wear a crown. He laughed harder. He took the empty kettle and put it atop of his head. Look at me, he said. I'm a king. See my crown? I'm a king just like I always wanted to be. I'm a king because I want to be one.
He danced around the hut with the kettle on his head. He laughed until he cried, and then he stopped dancing and took the kettle from his head and looked at Meg and said,
Do you want a good clout to the ear for such nonsense?
No, thank you, Uncle, said Meg. But she got one anyway.
Look here, said Uncle after the clout had been delivered. We will hear no more talk of this of princesses. Besides, whoever asked you what you wanted in this world, girl?
The answer to that question, reader, as you well know, was absolutely no one. So yeah, this is a little bit sadder of an ending as well. I know this is a little bit of the hard part of the book, but we will get through it. I promise it's really good. But Meg here, she decides to hope. She realizes she wants to be a princess. She realizes that maybe there's something that she could do that she wants. And her uncle here does not respond in the same way. He's really mean to her. He yells at her. And so we were leaving off a little bit hopeful in chapter 26, but then now that we just read chapter 27, he kind of was like, nope, I'm not going to ask you what you want. And he mocked her. And I think that's an important lesson to take from this chapter, is that even if you don't think something's realistic, like, it's not super realistic for her to become a princess, but like, it's one thing to just kind of like, okay, like not think it's going to happen. But watch how her uncle responds. He laughs at her. He mocks her. And so that is just not the appropriate response to anybody. Anytime somebody is hoping for something, even if it seems kind of out of reach, like that is not how we should respond. And I know you guys wouldn't respond in that way. But I think that's an important lesson to be taken from this book. So stay tuned for me for our next video while we continue reading the tale of Despereaux. Bye, everyone.